Yeah, hi, I'm Shaun Bunn, and I'm the Managing Director of Empire Metals. It's an AIM-listed company, and we're an Australian-focused gold and copper company.
And Austria in there too as well. I saw. Looking forward to hearing about that.
Austria indeed.
Right. Okay. Look, Shaun, thanks for coming on the show. It's the first time we've met or spoken or heard about this story. So I kind of want to get into the weeds with you a bit. But first of all, just can you give me sort of background to the company history? Because if I'm looking at the numbers and the number of shares out and the number of institutional shareholders on it, there seems like there's a story in the background.
Well, you mentioned Austria, and I guess that's a good place to start. It's the foundation stone, if you like, of the company. Some old gold, silver workings in the Austrian Alps that the company was looking to move into development. The various reasons why that has largely been put on hold. I think they're good assets. I don't think the company is inclined to just dispose of that at the moment. But what we are looking for, of course, is a way to get some valuation out of those old assets in Austria. We also historically were in Georgia and had a copper gold target there, a Russian joint venture, quite a large old Soviet resource that was being explored, but for various reasons that didn't proceed much beyond the early exploration phase, and we got bogged down with difficulties working with the joint venture partner and the local and the government. So I think historically we've had opportunities to take things through exploration, resource development into production, but we have hit external barriers or hurdles that we just simply haven't been able to overcome. So in Austria, very difficult to get a gold mining operation up, particularly with their restrictions against cyanide use in Europe. In Georgia, let's just say I think it's probably in hindsight now, having moved out 12 months ago, certainly we're better for it, because I think with the current, Russian involvement, we would have been really struggling as a company to continue to move that forward.
Right. Okay. So there's a bit of history there, and obviously we're going to talk we're going to talk entirely about the Australian assets and how you're moving that forward. I'm looking forward to that. But just in terms of that kind of share register and cleaning up the balance sheet, etc., you're sitting with a whole bunch of institutional shareholders as a result of that history. Obviously, people like Interactive Investors and Hargreaves and AJ Bell and Haywood and Halifax, etc. So there's a lot there. They are kind of legacy shareholders from when, I guess, times were better in 2018, 19. None of those people have suggested to you perhaps sort of tidying up that kind of share register, maybe doing a rollback or something like that, because I know it's a very Aussie thing to have lots of shares out, but for an AIM company, it's kind of unusual, isn't it?
Possibly. I don't think anyone's raised that particular issue of a rollout to us. I think what's happened recently is we've progressed towards refocusing the company as an Australian-focused, early exploration focused company. I think the capital structure that's come with that may not be the ideal one, but that's something for us to consider as we get assets developed here in Australia. I think that's a challenge for down the track.
Right. And in terms of, again, the management's approach, because, we'll talk about the team in a second, but in terms of the management's approach to the balance of that share register, obviously it's kind of quite heavily weighted towards institutional. And for a small company, circa £5 million, it's kind of unusual, but I get that it's because of legacy issues. Do you look to try and affect that? Is there any sense that the institutional guys might be seen as an overhang? Would they look to kind of get out as quickly as possible because I suspect, well, I don't know, maybe they're underwater, maybe they're not, but are those conversations that you're having with those institutional shareholders as to their intent?
Well, I was in London in late May, early June for a series of meetings with many of our major groups that support us, and certainly wasn't raised as a major concern. I mean, some of our bigger shareholders are are staying with us and are willing to wait the journey. I think there's a large trade at the moment. There's reasonable liquidity, but that's mainly smaller retail turnover. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, just focus on that, if I may. We've re-established ourselves here in Australia. We're building a significant portfolio over 4 major, exploration camps, early exploration phase on 3 of them. And I don't believe that we've been able yet to get that message out there to really let the day-to-day shareholders, the day-to-day punters, understand what it is that we've acquired, what the future holds in terms of exploring and looking to develop something on one of these assets. And I think with cash in the hand, we've got a significant cash balance. I believe we're highly we're very undervalued at the moment. To be honest, I think we've got to continue to push our focus on getting progress on this new exploration targets that we've developed here in Australia.
Right, and okay, so talk to that. So I know you talked about a raise in April, and the stock kind of shot up, not off the back of a lot of trading, but it shot up to, I'm looking here, it says about 2.5p pence, and then it's come sort of back down, sort of settled back down again. So how much money did you raise, and what was the message to the market at that time? Well,
we were looking at some pretty positive news coming out of our Eclipse-Gindalbie project. We had some really stellar high-grade intercepts around the target there that we had drilled for the first time, a target called Homeward Bound. We were hitting 3 to 5 meters over 10 gram per ton. So it was, that was clearly an exciting time for us in terms of making a significant step forward and putting a substantial gold resource around that area. We also had just only acquired the 3 other major assets, the portfolio I'm talking about, which is the Pitfield, the Walton and the Staveley project areas that we've acquired. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about them shortly. So there was an opportunity. There was a lot of interest in people coming in then to acquire some stock, and I think it was the good timing for us, the right decision at the time, because now moving forward we can spend that money. We've got as of about June, we still have nearly £3 million in the bank. We're well funded to get the exploration programs moving over the next 12, 18 months, 2 years. I don't see that we're not going to be stagnant and sitting here like a frightened rabbit in the spotlight. I think we need to step forward and do the work.
Okay. Well, we better talk about the plan then. Okay, so obviously Eclipse was the thing that you were talking about back in April, May. You picked up Pitfield, Staveley and Walton since. It's a £5 million company. You do have as of the end of June, you had £3 million in the kitty. So tell me about the business plan. You're not a frightened rabbit, I get it, but what are you going to do?
So the whole focus of us was firstly looking to move or get a beachhead here in Australia, where we believe that it's a safe mining jurisdiction. It was booming. There's a lot of opportunities to build a substantial portfolio, and we're demonstrating that. So we added to Eclipse. We built onto that an adjacent license called Gindalbie, which was triple the size of the footprint there. Eclipse-Gindalbie is only 55 kilometres just northeast of Kalgoorlie. So we're in a good postcode. We know there's significant high-grade gold there, and it's been mined, artisanal mining going back well over 100, 130 years, was mining gold, high-grade gold from that region. Nearly 30-odd thousand ounces at over 24 grams a tonne has been pulled out of these old shafts by by hand, hand chiseling and the old boys. So we know in a high grade target area we'll come back to, I think, to the Eclipse story shortly. The plan was to build on that beachhead by bringing in a broader portfolio, and not only broader in the sense of scale. So we were looking for scale. We moved from just under 10 square kilometres to 1,728 square kilometres. So it's an area of exploration now greater than, a size greater than, Greater London itself, if you like. So it's a big footprint. That in itself doesn't get me excited. It's quality. We've got, with Gindalbie and Eclipse, we have 4 completely different geological domains to operate in, and we're looking for mainly copper and gold targets within these domains, but that there is potential for other base metals. So if we look at Pitfield, for instance, it's 300 kilometres north of Perth here, where we have our office. It's in an area called the Yandanuka Basin, and that's a Neoproterozoic basin. It's a very small little Neoproterozoic occurrence, significant because that's largely where you see the major copper belts around the world. So, the Zambian copper belt, up in the Fraser Range in the north of Western Australia, you've got mines like Telfer. So we know that this is historically a productive area. There's an old copper mine within a few kilometres of our licence. And CRA, for instance, were operating in this area back in the 90s. They identified a very large copper anomaly across our licence. So we know copper's there. What we don't know is, what's the origin, what's the basement look like. So that's a key area for us to move forward on. The Staveley is in Victoria. The Staveley Arc is a major volcanic arc from the Cambrian era. Again, highly prospective for copper porphyry and gold, orogenic gold. So that one is a very large holding that we've acquired in a very, very interesting location.
Okay, but tell me this, Shaun, because companies of a certain size, you got to have a kind of clear vision about what you are. Are we an exploration play? How do we fund this thing? Obviously, you can go and raise money in the market with equity, or you can JV some of these assets and use someone else's balance sheet, and whether whether that's 50-50 or whether you're carried on some component of it. You've got to work out how you move forward through the phases. Otherwise, it becomes a very expensive, dilutive process. So what is it that you're trying to be with all of this land package? Because, the right postcode is good and neurology is good, but that's not enough. You got to fund this. You got to fund this work on this large land package. So what's the plan? Well,
critically, we were able to acquire these assets without having to reach deep into pockets and spend a lot of cash. A lot of these deals have been done. We've still got the original vendor is part of the deal, both technically and supportive in the sense that they're as part of a joint venture. So the important thing is we didn't waste any money in acquiring. Secondly, they are, as I said earlier, exploration targets. So we will approach them on that basis. There's no, we're not going to say turn up with drills and start drilling holes into these things, on day one. We've done a geophysical survey over Pitfield. We've just announced, and really pleased with those results. Exceptional results, to be honest.
In what way exceptional? Why would you say that?
Oh, we've got a extremely responsive, a high magnetic anomaly, sits over about a 20-kilometre zone, which abuts right up against where we know the copper anomaly was. So those two planets have aligned, if you like. We're suddenly saying, well, hold on, there's something there in the basement. And where we see the surface copper anomaly start to dilute down, and it's not so significant, is simply a function of cover. So that magnetic anomaly that sits along that strike could represent a significant, for instance, magnetite occurrence, again, which is indicative of a major alteration event. All those things align up to say we are in the right spot. We've got to, next phase for Pitfield will be a further geochemical soil sampling. So not a big expensive exploration program at Pitfield, in the next few months. We want to be drilling there, probably early next year though.
Right. Okay.
Stavely, the same thing. We're going to do we've got regional exploration, regional magnetics, government-run magnetics over 200-metre lines at Stavely. We'll need to come back in and do another aeromagnetic survey, but it's $150,000 Aussie, £75,000 to do that. This is high value, low cost, early exploration. Walton, we've already got good geophysics. We know where the greenstone belts sit in that structure. It's a geochemical soil sampling and mapping, geological mapping program to start with. So we're not, filling up the buckets of cash and just pouring them out the door at the moment. What we're trying to do is be very smart. So we're de-risking by being in Australia in the first place and having confidence in the title, B, having a choice over the assets that we manage, and C, we're putting, and you mentioned the team, we're putting together a team, a capable team to deliver on all of that.
Right. So you get all the surface work. So you're trying to be smart with the money that you're using and how that's allocated to kind of move this forward. So a lot of work at surface, but you know what it's like with the retail market and the market more broadly is it's when you start drilling that people get a little bit more excited. That's when they start listening. So given the number of projects that you've got and given you're not cash constrained anyway. You're able to do what you want to do, but at some point you need to say, well, we have prioritized these targets. These are the ones that we want to go after, and this is how much we need for that. Do you park up some of the less prioritized projects, or do you look for partners to kind of come in here? Because you can't move everything forward at the same pace, can you?
Of course not, and I agree. But what we have to do, I think, is get a better handle. So I talked earlier about the fact that a lot of our current shareholders and other people that are looking at us are going, well, what is Empire about? What have you got? And quite frankly, we haven't been able yet to advance, with this early exploration phase. It's a great opportunity and very exciting to be an early explorer. But the downside of that is that you can't go out to the market and say, hey, we've got a copper, we've got a copper deposit, or we've got a gold, outcrop here. We know we have substantial gold targets at Gindalbie Eclipse. That's where we're drilling. We're managing that drill program now to try and get the best extension of those resources. And so we have news flow, in the short term coming out of Eclipse-Gindalbie. We'll probably be looking to do other programs there in the coming months as we build that.
Right.
But once we identify something at Pitfield, that focus could easily shift to say, right, well, we need to put a couple of exploratory holes in eventually at Pitfield. We need to know what we're sitting on. And trying to predict what we might find, and then trying to predict, do we go to a major? Do we go to a BHP? Do we go to Rio and say, hey, look what we're sitting on here? It's a 20-kilometre magnetic anomaly. It's not, that is, massive. If that's copper, if there's a copper deposit adjacent or involved in that anomaly, then we will be able to get on the radar of a lot of the bigger players.
But how do the bigger players view this, right? Because if I come back to messages in the market, and there's lots of companies out there, lots of white noise, and you're competing in that environment, right? Anomalies and targets come and go. Discoveries are hard, right? So if you said to a major or a larger company with a bigger balance sheet, hey, we've got this magnetic anomaly here, is that the point they get interested, or do you need to have a certain number of holes in these things to get them excited? In which case, how far away are you from that?
So historically, BHP, CRA, which now belongs to part of Rio Group, Mount Isa Mines, and Kennecott have all had a look at this particular license area and done, a certain amount of, let's say, superficial work. Now, clearly in those days, they must have had other priority targets or budgets, because they've all moved on, from that early phase. And this thing sat dormant for quite a while. The fact that their senior exploration people were drawn to this area in the first place without any of these holes or discovery holes already in place tells us that the science is there. We're in the right area. I don't want to give anything up too early. I don't want to go out there in hands and knock on these doors and say, hey, we've got an anomaly. Would you like to do something with us? I want to be able to sit there and say, I'm going to put a hole into this thing. I'm going to put holes into this thing once we're confident. Once we're confident that it's worth the expense and that we have a high possibility, a probability of hitting something. So that's where we'll add value to our shareholders, I think, immediately. We will get value at the end of the drill bit, not by necessarily going out and doing farming deals or neurology exercises saying, oh, look at us, BHP have come in and put their arms over their shoulder and said, we'll take over from here on. I think we're better off doing the work, doing the science. I agree entirely with the fact that having 4 large portfolios is a logistical challenge, and that's why it's important that we bring together, a really good team who understand exploration. We don't need miners yet. We don't need mine geologists yet. We need explorers, and that's what we're focusing on.
Okay, well, the only reason I'm sort of asking this is obviously, again, because of the legacy issues. I'm trying to say, well, how do people view you? Because obviously, gave Austria a go, didn't work out. Gave Georgia a go, didn't work out. Now focused on good jurisdiction. Okay, I get the good jurisdiction here, but it kind of needs to work this time, or perhaps you're not going to get the attention that you want. So talk to me about the team. It's like, is this the same team that worked in Austria and Georgia? Or, maybe sort of point me towards, who on the teams, well, one, actually doing some work, not just a nameplate, not just there for the name, but actually doing the work. And, where are the successes that you can point to in the past?
The team, I guess, starts, apart from myself, who have been with the, working in gold industry now for about 25 years out of nearly 40 years in the mining industry. So my focus is not as a geologist. I'm more of a project developer. What I can say about the board of Empire is there's the chairman, Neil O'Brien, ex-VP or director of exploration for London Mining. So, he's a PhD in geology. So we've got technical expertise at the very highest level. The team we're building together here in Australia at the moment consists of a couple of geologists on staff and part-time staff as well. So one of the vendors who brought the Century projects to us, Ed Boltus, is working with us now and has been for the last 12, 18 months. Ed is exploration VP for Goldfields, and prior to that with Western Mining that was sort of taken out by BHP a few years ago. So Ed is sort of heading up a lot of the strategy. We also have Louisa Stokes. Louisa's a PhD student currently at Curtin University, but she does all the interp and is working with us now on some of the more structural aspects of particularly the Gindalbie area, around Eclipse-Gindalbie. The rest of the team at the moment is mainly provided through groups of consultants that we use. For instance, the geophysics work that we've just done at Pitfield were done by specialist geophysics. The work we'll do at Staby will be similar in the geophysics area. So at the moment, we're not putting in a massive number of drill supervision type geologists. We're just simply using, consultants for that. We will move forward over the next 6 to 12 months as these assets start to get worked to build a stronger, permanent team.
Right. So there's some folks there who are working, and there's some who are in the background as and when required, because obviously you don't want a massive G&A at this point either. So you focus on the exploration component. I get it, but again, you get my point with regards to, you kind of need to go to the market with success now, right? You've two things which have not quite worked out. It's exploration, I understand it, but you know what I mean. The market is unforgiving in a way. You need success. So the process that you go through needs to not necessarily be the right one geologically or for the company, but it's got to be the right one for the company in terms of the market. So again, how do you get that balance between doing what you actually probably want to do in the right way versus having to slightly navigate that need to have some positive news in the market?
Again, I think the focus that we have is to, with a portfolio of 4 projects or 4 camps, the reality is that each of those are at a different phase of its development. So if you come again back to Eclipse, our initial beachhead, we've done over 11,000 meters of drilling. That is clearly a very mature exploration project for us. Do we continue to drill it? I don't think it's necessary. I think what we'll probably end up doing with Eclipse is start to put together resource models, start to try and analyze it. The Gindalbie, Eclipse is part of a bigger picture, the bigger Gindalbie zone. So everything we've learnt from Eclipse, all the lessons that have been learnt about the direction of the shear and the nature of the gold mineralisation, we can apply that to all the mineralised trends along the Gindalbie licence. So there was over 100 old artisanal shafts across that licence. All of them tend to sit on these northwest structures, these shears. And so we sort of now have a much better understanding of where we need to start looking and start drilling.
Talk to me, so 11,000 meters. I mean, so how much in your current case, you've got 11,000 meters on Eclipse. So how much money did that cost?
There's been 4 campaigns. The expenditure to date on that, I could only give you a guess off the top of my head because a lot of that, 3 of the campaigns were run before I joined the company. We did one major diamond drilling campaign at the start of this quarter, or the first quarter of this year. That was about a 300,000 Australian dollar campaign. And I've just, the last drilling campaign at Eclipse, we probably spent another 80,000. So about $400,000 spent in the last 12 months. Prior to that, the previous drilling, I couldn't tell off the top of my head what was invested.
But so 400,000 got you how many meters?
Generally it's average. Let's say it's $50 a meter. So
not all in. All in. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything so low. Okay. Well, including assays? Not including assays.
No, for the drilling. That's not including the assays. But the assays are not going to add that much more to the cost.
Okay, interesting.
Within 4 meter composite.
So $400,000 got you how many meters? I'm just trying to do some more numbers.
Well, that was diamond. So 900 meters of that was diamond.
Okay. Yep.
And the last campaign I've done is about 1,200 meters.
1,200 meters. Okay, interesting. Okay, so the company has raised a stack of money in the past to kind of obviously deliver 11,000 meters just on the Eclipse project. Okay, understood. I guess I should go and try and work out how much that is. And then with Gindalbie, the idea would be to just do a little bit more work on that using some of the data that you've got out of the Eclipse project. So have you allocated a budget to that, or is it a case of, The
Gindalbie, the agreement there is that we would extend for 18 months. There's a payment of 250,000 Australian dollars to do so. That needs to... we need to finalise that decision by the end of August.
Yeah, and what's that for? What's that for? Just on the extend the option.
So that's the Gindalbie arrangement is a tribute agreement whereby we have the rights to explore, develop and produce from the license. We struck that deal on the basis that we would have a 6-month window to go in initially and we had a guarantee to spend another 250,000, which we've done at Gindalbie, and then we extend it again by $250,000 for 18 months, and a minimum commitment of another $250,000. So there's a requirement that we'll have to do another drill program there, or surface exploration work over the next 18 months.
Okay, so that money's going on the ground, in the ground. It's not a payment for an option or anything like that. It'll go to produce data which you can use.
Basically,
Okay.
it's the 250 that we put in is going into the ground.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. And what's the kind of budget? Obviously, you told us how much money you've got. So what's the budget for the rest of this year, and what does that kind of get you in terms of announcements to the market? Because you're quite good at talking to the market. Lots of press releases, but what do you want to be talking about by the end of this year?
By the end of the year, I would like to have completed the next phase of surface work on the pit field, because I think we've got the magnetic survey back, but we're still waiting for the detail from the airborne electromagnetic survey, which was a much more extensive survey over the entire license area. So once we have that, that'll pinpoint, for us at least, what the basement looks like, and where the superficial cover sits, if you like. There is a topographic high. It's a ridge. We can see. We can map the geology on that, but it very much disappears under soil, and it's farmland. So the farmers are still out there with crops. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do to get anything out of surface mapping. So you have to look at the basement. We have to get in eventually and drill to see what's below. As I said, I don't intend to put rigs onto Pitfield this year. I think we need to do more work. Both Walton and Staveley are still going through the final application processes, so we've got we are planning to be able to get onto those leases by the end of the year, early next.
Got it. Okay, so it's kind of less busy than I probably appreciate it, because it seems like a lot going on for a small company, but the reality is Pitfield a little bit more surface work to do. Staveley and Walton still going to go through some approvals. So the focus is Eclipse and Gindalbie with the budgets, and you kind of just describe and outline what you're going to do there. So I think that's actually probably better. Can we just talk about, if you don't mind, what you told us what you want to try and achieve for the rest of this year. So if you were talking to a new bunch of retail, I mean, how do you describe yourself? This is pure play exploration, and that's what you do best, or do you hope to kind of move into kind of a development phase, as it were? Have you kind of got the team for that? You're a project manager, I get it, but what's the rest of the team feel about it?
It's a conversation that we've had, certainly at the board level, is what sort of, where do we get the best, how do we deliver value in the, near term to the shareholders, rather than set some, lofty goal that might be, 10 years in the making again. So I think, our focus is, and the message we've delivered is that we're currently an exploration play. We are looking for a discovery. What we do once we have that discovery is something that we'll have to sit down and look at the merits of, what have we found? Is it copper? Is it more gold? Is it a base metal discovery? Is it something that we have the expertise, or we feel we have the expertise to develop, or is it something we're going to need a major or a partner to come in on? So all those things have to be, I think it's, horses for courses. We have to sit there and see what we've got and make decisions. But we're not precious about, I guess the important message here is that we're not, we're ambitious, but we're not precious about, hey, we found something, we're going to build it, we're going to develop it, we're going to build a company that, we're going to be a copper company, or we're going to be something. I think we have to sit there and say, what is the market telling us? What are the shareholders talking to us about? Where do they want us to go with this asset? And who best to develop it? I'm hoping we're going to have choice. I don't want to be a one-trick pony and just sit there and go, oh, we've got this gold thing at Eclipse and Gindalbie, we're drilling it. I want to have choice on the table to say we've got other prospects. we can turn those prospects into, resources, and the resources then we can look to see who might come in, who would develop a resource, who's best suited to take it to the next level. Is it us or is it a major?
Know who you are. No, I totally agree with that one. And just sort of one last thing in terms of your view of the market, and given that you have to sort of dip in and out, and you've been around the block a bit, do you think copper projects are going to be easier to fund going forward than gold projects?
Easy is probably a difficult. I'll put that into context. I think a copper development, by its very nature, needs to be of a greater scale. You need scale to make it work. Gold, you can get away. A lot of people are making little gold projects and making, turning around maybe 12, 18 months, 2 years, but putting money into their bank. So we're dealing in a different type of world. But my thoughts would be, copper is becoming an attractive commodity for the majors to have, as opposed to coal or some of the other elements. You turn the TV on in Australia, the mining industry is booming. We've got Glencore running adverts, BHP running adverts. Copper. They're promoting it. It's the new green. So I like copper. I think it's a great industry for us to pursue. I think it's a great commodity. I think it will allow us, if we can put together a copper gold target, to stand up and be recognised by not only the market, but as we talked earlier about some of these majors. It's I think it's where we should be. That's why we're looking in the areas we're looking.